Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the Salescast Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we are on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Daryl Amy.
Hey there, it's Larry, and I'm thrilled to share something incredibly close to my heart. My latest book, Selling in a Post-Trust World, is now available. In today's landscape where trust is harder to come by than ever, I've poured my years of experience into these pages to guide you through connecting genuinely and building lasting relationships with your customers. This book is more than just strategies. It's about transforming the way you sell by being authentic, real, and trustworthy in every interaction. It's for those who believe that integrity and sales can go hand in hand, and for anyone looking to not just meet their quotas, but to truly make a difference in their customers' lives. If you're ready to elevate your sales game and navigate the complexities of selling in a world where skepticism is the norm, Selling in a Post-Trust World is your must-read guide. And here's the best part. Even though it won't hit the bookstores until this summer, you can get your hands on an advanced reader's copy right now. Just head over to sellinginapostrustworld.com or click the link in the show notes, and let's embark on this journey together towards more meaningful, trust-based selling.
Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Daryl Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
You know what? Great seeing you. We got all kinds of things going on. Super grateful to everybody. This Selling from the Heart train just keeps chugging down the tracks, Daryl.
You got deals that are stuck. You're going to love this conversation today with James Muir. He is in the studio. Awesome conversation ahead. So many great things going on. So fun seeing the reaction to Selling in a Post-Trust World, your new book. And Larry, I'm so grateful for the time that you spent putting together the trust formula. And we've been talking about the trust formula for some time now, and it's in a book. And I'm so glad to get this book in the hands of all of our friends out in the sales world, because right now, trust has always been everything in sales, but boy, it's hard to get trust. It's hard to build it. It's hard to keep it. And we got to learn how to sell in a post-trust world.
Absolutely. Years in the making. So grateful for all the shout outs, for the warm reception I've gotten to the book. Simply, I just say I'm humbled. I'm humbled to everybody. But more importantly, it takes the foundation of Selling from the Heart, and we apply trust in 4 facets. You'll learn all about it. Amazing journey we take you on.
So this book is set to release wherever fine books are sold later this summer. But the good news is, as a listener to this podcast, you can get your hands on an advanced reader's copy of Larry's new book. Rumor is it's going to be autographed. All you got to do is go to sellinginapostrustworld.com. Links in the show notes, and we'll get you an advanced reader copy of this book. And this is just so exciting, Larry. And I love the community. We talk about our friends in the community here every week on the Selling from the Heart podcast, because community is what it's all about. And I love this group of like-hearted sales professionals we get to hang out with all the time, Larry. Just a shout out to one of our good friends in the Selling from the Heart community.
Yeah, this one's near and dear to me because I have enjoyed getting to know this person. His name's Kofi, Kofi. If you don't know him, start following this gentleman. An amazing backstory. His book, Unbroken Optimist, is an amazing story into Kofi's life, moving from West Africa to the United States. Great guy, amazing. Kofi. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it, Kofi. Huge shout out. Well, today we've got James Muir in the studio. He's a friend to Selling from the Heart. And if you don't know James, you're going to love getting to know him. He stands out as a renowned author and speaker in the realm of sales with deep experience in healthcare. He's best known for his influential book, The Perfect Close, and now his latest book, Unsticking Deals. James's expertise in devising effective sales strategies and tackling complex business hurdles is widely recognized across the sales world. Through his best-selling books and engaging keynote presentations, James always offers practical advice and insights that empower professionals across various sectors. His contributions are pivotal in guiding organizations and individuals towards maximizing their revenue and navigating the challenges of the complex business environment. Best of all, he's an all-around great guy. James, welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. It's great to have you here.
Oh, holy smokes, Daryl. That is one killer intro.
You like that one, James?
Yeah, I'm going to record that and use that somewhere. Holy smokes. Yeah, that'll be for the next keynote. Thank you.
There you go. Hey, we are huge fans around here. Very rarely does a week go by when we don't talk about the perfect close in some way inside our own team. And so it's an honor to have you here. I'm looking forward to this conversation. And as we get started, James, you know the question that every guest on the Selling from the Heart podcast answers, and that is, what does it mean to you to sell from the heart?
You know, for me, it's just genuinely helping clients achieve their goals, whether that includes you or not. I mean, it just means facilitating great decisions. And sometimes that involves you and sometimes it doesn't. But if your intention is just to help them, then you can go into every single encounter just enjoying yourself, have a great experience. You won't feel too much pressure, right? And you know you're doing the best thing for the client.
This is so good. And I'm glad that you brought up a word that's near and dear to me. It's intention. We have to bring intentionality to the forefront. And if we can bring that, good things start to happen. But it's intentionally looking out for the best interests of our clients. And that might be sometimes saying, you know what, this may not be the right fit.
I find it liberating, by the way. You go into a client, think, hey, maybe I can help these guys, maybe I can't. You don't have to worry about it too much. So you just go in there and be 100% present with the customer.
100%.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And you can always help. There's always a way to help. And that's what makes this perspective so much fun. Well, hey, I know that there are listeners. We've got a great audience of sales professionals and sales leaders that have deals that are stuck. And we've these deals. And I'm so thankful that you put this book together, Unsticking Deals. Congratulations. I know it's a lot of work to put a book together. It's a massive gift to the sales world. But Unsticking Deals, how do you get a deal unsticked?
Oh, there's a good one.
Unstick.
James, I got to throw down the gauntlet on that. That's the Canadian version of unstuck.
That's it's a process. It's the process for unsticking deals.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, Larry. But I want to get these deals unsticked.
Okay, then. All right. Well, it's funny. You said, literally, stuck deals are probably the biggest problem in sales.
Yeah.
Right? Depending on the industry, it's like between 40 and 60% of all sales are actually lost to no decision, right? Mm-hmm. No decision is pretty much every organization's, every salesperson's largest competitor. And so think about this. The implications of that are just, they're mind-blowing, right? Like that means that pretty much the problem of no decision, it effectively doubles the cost of every sale and wastes about half of every salesperson's time. It's a really, really big problem. And the reason that I wrote the book is I'd go in right after I wrote Perfect Close, I'd go in and meet with clients. And of course, they all want to meet because they want to learn how to improve their closing ratios. But then we do this discovery and then we'd find out, oh, you know what? Maybe it's really not a closing problem after all. It's another kind of problem. And what I'd find out, I mean, literally account after account after account, I'd find that virtually all of them had huge problems with, they have big bloated pipelines actually, where all these deals are sitting in there, but they can't seem to get any of them across the finish line. So I started keeping track of all that stuff. And after thousands of conversation, closing challenges basically just fall down into really three challenges, or if a deal is stuck, that is, or stalled, or what was that word you used? Unstickified?
Unsticked. I think you can get a trademark on that one, James. I don't know if it's ever been used before.
Probably because nobody wants it. Yeah, that's. Anyway, there's basically only three things that cause deals to get stick, and they're either sales issues, client indecision, or business case issues. Those three things. And so the whole book is basically dissecting those, figuring out what the root cause of your stuck deal is, and then applying a couple of rubrics around that to unstick them. So I call them plays.
Yeah.
Hey, this is so good, James. And I'm just hoping, if you'll be willing to go down that road, take us through all three phases, just give us the Cliff Notes Reader's Digest version of what you learned through all three of these.
I won't lie. So, I'm self-published, right? Which allows me to publish a bigger book than Wiley would let you publish. But Wiley won't let you publish more than like 220 pages or something like that. So it's a little bit bigger than that. But let's see if I can give you the turbo version of this. So sales issues are obviously things that cause things in the sales process that cause the deal to stall. And there's probably an infinite number of ways you can mess up a deal. But when you get right down to, once you start to codify it, there's really 5 things that are the sales types issues that cause deals to stall out. The first of that is bad targeting. The second is wrong or incomplete stakeholders. Third one is champion management. Fourth is relationship management. And the fifth is everybody's favorite, competition. So those are the sales things. And then the second big factor that causes deals to stall, which is probably where most people can learn the most, is around client indecision. And client indecision is basically when a deal gets stalled because the customer can't decide for some reason. And we've all been frustrated with some account, right, that we can't get over the how much more do I need to give you, right, in order to close. And that can be broken down into 3 things that cause people to suffer from indecision. And the first is value and comparison problems, right? They're having a hard time comparing options. Second is lack of information. And the third thing is the big daddy of the 3. It's called outcome uncertainty. They're not really sure they're going to get the outcome that the solution promises. And then the last one is business case. And business case issues are when deals stall due to the business case itself just not being interesting to enough. And people tend to overthink that one a lot, but business case is really just about one thing, and that's priority. That's all it is. Business case helps the client answer the question, is solving this problem the best use of our time and money right now? And the client's got a lot of stuff they can spend their money on. And so the business case is what helps them compare all of those different things with each other. But those are the 3 root causes. And then once you've figured out what the root cause is, then there's a bunch of different strategies and plays that you can use to unstick your stuck deal.
I like this perspective, and this model is extremely. I can already see a salesperson and a sales leader overlaying this on top of the bloat inside the pipeline and looking at things that are stuck. I can already see this as a very helpful way to do it. I want to key in just for a moment before we look at the solutions on this, on the business case around this. And this was, I'm having just a bit of a self-reflective moment as I think back to years earlier when I was trying desperately to sell software. These were large software packages, and I was so frustrated. And I met so many salespeople who were so frustrated. Like, this is such a great idea. It's going to help them, improve their business. It's going to help them reduce the risk of a disaster taking them out. It was going to help them all these different ways. And we couldn't understand. I've met so many salespeople in the software space that couldn't understand why they couldn't get a yes. And I always said, can you hang this recommendation on at least one of their top 3 business priorities? Because if you can't, guess what? They got limited budget. They got limited time. They got limited internal resources. They're always going to go to the top priorities. And, so I always had salespeople look at deals in a pipeline and go, what are their top 3 priorities in the business? You can't answer that question. Well, boom, let's start there. And then how do we draw the line between this recommendation, one of their top priorities? Otherwise, it's not going to get budget. It's not going to get time. How do you coach a rep through? That was a long question I'm answering or asking here, James. How do you, thanks for letting me go down memory lane for a moment, but how as a salesperson or sales leader, do you have an honest assessment of whether you've made a real business case? Because I think in our fantasy world as salespeople, we're like, I made a great business case. How do you distinguish that fantasy that we made a great business case from the reality of what the prospect is thinking?
Well, you're describing a fairly complex sale, what you just described there, right? And so in those types of sales, especially, people have, excuse me, other alternatives that they could be spending their money on. And so you might not actually be competing with some other software package. You might be competing with opening up a whole new wing on a hospital, or opening up an ICU, or acquiring a clinic or something like that. All of those things are totally different. And so there's a way to compare any two or three, multiple offerings against each other and come out with an answer. And there's three things. There's muchness, soonness, and sureness. Okay, so let me explain what those are. So muchness is how much, right, of a return, how much revenue usually is the project going to return. Soonness is how soon am I going to get the return, right? And sureness is how certain am I to get the return. And the beautiful thing about understanding just those little three things alone, when you compare any two things, you can compare them based on muchness, soonness, and sureness. You can, in a case where even if you're not the top priority, let's say you discover that their big priority is this thing that you don't even have a solution that touches what that top priority is, you can still position your solution as becoming a no-brainer. For example, maybe your muchness isn't as big as their super moonshot project, right? But at the same time, you might be able to deliver yours almost instantaneously with almost no risk whatsoever. If that's the case, then you're going to position your solution as a no-brainer. You're like, hey, why would you wait? Why would you wait till your moonshot is over before you do this project? You should just do it right now. Even though it's not the biggest return, it is definitely the fastest and the most certain return. And this used to happen to me in healthcare all the time, right? I'd be selling complex IT systems, and I might be competing with them opening up an ICU. And the thing is, opening up an ICU, that takes maybe a year to even do. It's very expensive. You got to make sure it gets fully utilized before it's over, right? And so you're hearing all those things. How much of a return? Well, maybe it could produce, $10 million or something for the client. But my return might return, I don't know, we'll just say $6 million. And it's going to start producing results within weeks. So are you going to take a risk and go 2 years out? Or would you rather just take the no-brainer and take the $6 million that starts happening after 6 weeks? So that is a way. It's actually a little more complex than that, obviously, but you're hitting right on the key, which is it's about priority. The customer's going to decide, well, I have to decide what I'm going to spend my money on. How do I know which thing? And a lot of customers actually don't know how to. I learned this from an executive at HCA that would go and acquire clinics, right? And he goes, here's what I look at each time. I look at muchness, soonness, and sureness, and then he's going to try to figure out how he's going to get his return, and that's how he would decide how to prioritize what acquisitions they did.
Hey, you know what, James? I really like this, and let's continue on this journey just for a little bit. Is coach our listeners through how does somebody bring this up towards the initial parts of this conversation? Now, granted, it's not going to come out in the very first conversation, but how does this start coming out in subsequent conversations to avoid that deal becoming stuck? There has to be certain key things that seller is going to do in the very beginning stages of this.
Sure. So
that's going to address that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that speaks to discovery. And there's something that I like to use. It's called the 5 golden questions. I like to do that during the beginning of the discovery. But you got to remember, not every, some sales are simpler, and you can get a sale done in 2 encounters, right? Or 2 meetings with a client. Others take many, right? Like some of mine have gone on 2 years because they're just really big projects that have lots of moving parts. But you can, at least at the beginning of the process, right? Even the very first meeting, you can vet whether or not there is a business case to actually do anything. And you can do that by asking 5 questions. This is totally worth, I didn't expect to share this today, but I'm going to give them to you, okay? So
there you go.
You ask them what it is that their priority is, right? To Daryl's point. And then you say, how do you measure it? So question number 1 is, how do you measure it? Okay. What is it now? What do you want it to be? That's the 3rd question. The 4th question is, what's the value of the difference? And then the 5th question is, what's the value over time? Okay. So I'll say those all over again for the people that are writing as fast as they can right now. How do you measure it? What is it now? What do you want it to be? What's the value of the difference, and what's the value over time? If you do that, the customer's going to be giving you all of their info, right? You don't even have to know anything about their business because they're the one giving you the metric. All you have to do is help them calculate the value of the difference. And so we do it, right? They say, oh, well, it's the metric is, and sometimes they struggle with the metric, right? If they don't know their business very well, you say, well, what tells you there's an issue? And then they'll tell you what it is, and you go, okay, well, what is that right now, right? And so usually it's measured in dollars and time, usually. And then say, what is it now? And then we're going to subtract it. We'll say, gosh, I'll throw out some hypotheticals. It seems like, the value of the difference of those two is like 200 grand a year. Is that right? I mean, that seems a little high. They go, oh yeah, if anything, that's probably low, because they're the ones giving you the numbers. They know what you're doing, so they'll always play safe. And then you're going to multiply that out by a number of years, so maybe 3 years to 5 years, depending on the type of investment. So then you'd say something like, well, gosh, it seems like this might be costing you like 600 grand over the course of the next 3 years. That seems pretty high. Does that seem right to you? And then they're going to go, oh yeah. And I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, they will say, if anything, it's low, because they were playing it safe. So you can have that conversation and do a back of the envelope business case before you ever even get really deep into it. But now sometimes it has happened to me where the value was low, in which case you're just going to say, it kind of seems like there's just not really all that big a problem. Am I wrong about that? And then what's going to happen is the secret thing that they didn't want to tell you, that has nothing to do with money, but has something to do with a really emotional problem that they're having. That's when it comes out, right? So you're just going to, again, we go in tabula rasa, blank slate. Maybe I can help, maybe I can't. And if the number's really big, you're going to say, gosh, it seems really big. If the number's low, you're just going to say, gosh, that number seems kind of low. If I were you, I wouldn't, it doesn't even seem like it's worth doing anything about. And that's when they'll come back and try to save you, actually, if it's too small. So I don't know if that helped you out, Larry, but
it did. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we can't hear you, Daryl.
I love this. Brilliant. I can't wait for a community to get their hands on this book. This is such practical stuff. And this is why I like hanging out with you, James, is you always bring something practical to the table. The perfect close. By the way, if you don't have the perfect close yet, buy that when you buy Unsticking deals, and you're going to have a double whammy of awesome sales tactics and tools. So I want to shift the discussion to the existing pipeline. Now, I love in the book how you give us the framework to make sure deals don't get stuck in the pipeline. But let's be honest, we all have some deals that are stuck in the pipeline. They've been there a long time. How do we unclog this thing? What's the Drano for the how
the open heart surgery?
Getting this, unblocked, unstuck, unclogged. Where do you begin in looking at that bloated pipeline to start this process? And what are some things you can do about it?
Sure. Well, you can tell a deal's been in the pipeline in a particular stage for too long. That's how you can tell when it's stalled out. And I give some more examples of how to figure out what the leading indicators of a stall deal are. But in terms of, hey, what do I do to unstick it? There's lots of ways. There's lots of individual plays, and the book is oozing with that. It's kind of just meant for you to do a diagnostic and quickly just jump to the part of the book that has the answer to here's the play you need to use then.
Love it.
So it's designed like that. But let me just quickly, at a very high level, describe all the plays. The first one is, if the customer's still talking to you, then great. The best thing to do is just go inquire and ask them what's causing the deal to get stuck. And then you can work and you can navigate from there, right? Now, usually that's not when people say, hey, my deal's stuck. What they really mean is the customer stopped talking to me. And so most of the rest of the plays have to deal with, how do I get a customer to talk to me when they maybe have gone silent? And so at the very high level, all these are what I call meta plays. They're very high level and they can be applied in lots of different ways. The second unsticking play is basically to introduce new information. And there's an infinite ways that you could do that. But basically what you're doing is you're going to introduce some new information that's paradigm shifting, and that will cause them to reevaluate things. So the idea of adding information, we could talk a lot about, but the thing is, you cannot tell a customer they're wrong. It doesn't work. They don't want to be told that they're wrong, but what you can do is you can say yes and you guys have probably heard this formula before, where they say, here's the irony of that. The psychology behind yes and is hilarious, but as long as you say yes and you agree with them, and then you add your and, believe it or not, your and can absolutely completely contradict them. Like if Daryl says, gosh, that looks red, and I go, yeah, but it's also just a shade of green. Believe it or not, rather than me telling him, no, you're wrong, it's green, he'll go, yeah. And what's really happening from a psychology perspective is people are that you're kind of collectively together trying to figure out what the truth of this situation is, right? And so, believe it or not, as long as you say yes and then you add whatever your new information is, they will receive it. And that's a much better way. It's like judo, right? You're, instead of just trying to come straight out of it and push them back, you're just kind of roll with them a little bit, right? So there are lots of ways to add new information. I got lots of them in the book. Let me give the other two before we run out of time. And that is unsticking play number 3 is to leverage unique messaging. And you've all heard of these kind of really clever ways that people use to try to get the attention of their clients in different ways. Both usually from a prospecting is when you hear it, but you can use some of these same techniques when you have a deal that's stalled out. And there's a whole list of them in there. The one that I think is the coolest is called the Hail Mary Circle of Influence letter. And I don't know if we have enough time to go through that.
Okay, but you piqued the interest, James, and now you got to go. You got to keep going on this one.
Okay, so it's especially good for complex sales where there's a lot of stakeholders. So the way that this works is you're going to identify whoever the key stakeholders that you're hoping to get a response from. Okay. And then you're going to identify all the other relevant stakeholders. Hopefully you've already done that at this point. And then what you're kind of looking for is, you're looking for maybe their boss, you're looking for a couple of peers and a couple of subordinates. And then you're going to send them a letter. It's a physical letter, and you're going to send it via FedEx. Okay, in a flat envelope. So if there were 6 of those stakeholders, you'd end up sending 6 FedExes. Okay, so this doesn't work for, if your deal's only worth $100 because you'll have already spent more on FedExes. Okay, but what you're going to do is you're going to send that in the letter. It's going to basically describe for them the new paradigm shifting information. So you were already using a little bit of meta play number 2, and then and you're going to say, but I didn't know who to talk to. So I sent this to all of you, and at the bottom of the letter, you're going to CC everybody so they can all see that they all saw it. Okay. Now, here's what I promise you. Okay. This is, by the way, this has never not worked for me. I promise you, they will talk about you. 100% chance, because the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to open the FedEx, right? And they're going to look at it like, oh my gosh, my boss is on this thing, right? And so they all get together and they'll say, oh, who's going to call this guy? Who's going to call this guy? So I don't guarantee they're going to buy your stuff, but what I do guarantee is you'll get one more chance to swing at the plate, because someone will contact you and ask you for that new piece of information, right, that you're inserting in there. And I could give more detail, but I know we're tight for time. So,
hey, but James, you got to go back. James, you really piqued my interest on that. So I got to layer one more question on top of it.
Okay.
Because based on your experience on this, because you said it's never not worked for you, who's the first person who usually reaches out to you? I'm just curious. Inquiring minds want to know.
Well, I've asked, and what happens is they all get together and they just delegate it to somebody. They just
pinpoint someone?
Yeah, so usually it's the person you've already been talking to, but not always. So I'll tell you a case that this happened to me, right? So I was working with a neurosurgery group that was in Colorado, and it was a big expensive system that we were trying to sell to these guys, and they had gone silent on me, and I thought, oh, we've lost this deal. We've lost it to somebody else. And so I sent this letter out to them. I sent to every one of in this case, the surgeons are the stakeholders, right? They're the equity holders of the company, right? So I sent them all, said, hey, I got this new way that you can acquire the system, but it requires at a much lower price, but it does have some legal baggage with it if you're okay with that. But I don't know who to talk to because nobody's talking to me. So and then I put that on there. So I get a call back. The surgeon calls me on the phone, and so I guess maybe before I tell you that, you're probably wondering how I solved the problem, and I'll tell you that. But the point is, they all see it, and they'll go, well, gosh, if it's that much less expensive, call the guy. Right. And so they end up calling you, and then you get another chance. In this case, what happened was there's an IPA, which is an independent physician organization, in their market. And they already had a license to our stuff. And so I said, hey, if you buy it through them, you could get it way, way cheaper than I can provide it to you. But you're going to have to be a member of their IPA in order to pull that off. Well, turned out it was worth it for them. So my IPA client got a win because they became part of their IPA, and I lost a deal, or I won a deal that I thought was going to be lost. Right. So anyway, but in my letter, just to say, you can see I did not tell him exactly. I could have said that whole thing in the letter, but you don't do that. You need to just insinuate that there's a way for a thing to happen, but they need to call you. because if you tell them the whole thing in the letter, there's no reason for them to call you
Sure.
back, right? So you got to do them just enough to make them want to call you so that you can have the conversation with them.
Hey, Daryl, you know what? Hey, James, you kind of woven in a little bit of the perfect close stuff as well. I can imagine that's part of the perfect
I
close.
love it.
Actually,
Love
if you
it.
look closely, one of the prevention strategies is to use the perfect close. Right?
Ah, there
Because
you
it
go.
creates momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're out of time here, but sometimes deals get stalled for very legitimate reasons, guys. And so one of the plays is just to wait. And I mean, a way to think about it is, if your house was flooding and you're trying to fix your house and it's flooding, and then suddenly your house catches fire, you change your priorities, right? You're like, oh gosh, yeah. And if you're the plumber, or if you're the guy that fixes the flooding problem, you're gonna have to wait till they put the fire out, because obviously that's the more urgent thing to do. And that's what's happening when sometimes clients go quiet and they don't talk to you, and that's because some other higher priority has come up. So you don't want to waste your deal altogether by walking away from a deal, when really the right strategy is just to wait till it has to become a priority. So there's ways to figure out whether or not it's the top priority or not. And then the last play is these disengaged messages. It's not you guys have all seen these horrid prospecting disengaged messages.
Yes.
This is not that. These disengaged messages are for when you've already been working with a customer, you've already been working with a client, and then they get stalled. If you want, did you get eaten by a hippo type, you can find those on the internet all day long. That's not what this is.
Well, this is what I love about hanging out with you, James, is you bring so much practical stuff to the table. And the perfect close was that for me. I know we talk about it all the time. Like, these are practical things that you can do. And unsticking deals, what an incredible, incredible gift to the sales world to coach us through this. I know everyone's thinking, Daryl, how can I get more James Muir in my life? So let me throw that out there. James, how can people get more of you in their life?
Oh my goodness. Well, the website is puremuir.com, PUREMUIR.com. And you can go from there. You can learn about the books and all the other stuff that I do. And then if you're wanting to get on social, I'm very active on LinkedIn is my number one. But if you want to see my personal life, you're certainly welcome to connect with me on Facebook. And then B2B_sales tips is my Twitter account. So if you want to follow that, it's 90% just shared. It's not a lot of sales pitches. It's me sharing. Actually, I post your guys' podcasts on it every single time.
I know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Super cool. James, thanks for sharing time with us. It's always fun hanging out with you. And thank you for this gift to the sales world. We sure appreciate you, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me back.
All right.
Awesome. Always practical, always useful. I love just hanging out with James Muir, like what we've got here. And I loved how he said, hey, get this book and you want to get Unsticking Deals and put it on your desk. Understand, you've got a diagnostic right there. Like, you can turn around, grab it, flip to the page and go, this is what we need to do to get this deal unstuck. I think we've got a new word here. Just so super practical, pure Muir right there.
No, it's just a roadmap. And I love what James is like, 'cause he gave us practical examples, and I knew James would, because he's just such a class act guy. It's just like, hey, if this situation comes up, pick the book up, keep it on your desk, thumb right to it, and he walks you right through it. This is it's golden stuff. And if it's anything like the perfect close was for us, this is a treasure trove. This book will be immensely popular.
Super excited. Speaking of another book that is already showing, and he's going to be immensely popular. How is that for a transition?
Oh, there you go.
You want to go to Selling in a Post-Trust World right now and get your advanced readers edition of this book. This is super cool. We want to offer this. We have a limited number. We want to give it to our friends, make it available to you so you can start tapping into the wisdom in this book right away. sellinginapostrustworld.com. Rumor is that you're going to autograph these on the way out the door.
It's not a rumor. It's actually true.
That's right. So you can get an autographed copy of an advanced reader's edition of this book. It is the actual literal book. We want to get it in your hands. sellinginapostrustworld.com. Thank you to everybody who is liking and subscribing to the podcast. And most of all, to those of you who have left a review. This helps us spread the word. If you haven't left a review on the platform on which you listen, will you do us a favor? just leave us a couple sentences about what you appreciate about the Selling from the Heart podcast, whether you listen on Spotify or Apple or whatever platform you listen on. We sure would appreciate it. And Larry, I'm so excited about the guests we have coming on throughout this summer. This summer is going to be hot. I don't know what the temperature is going to be like, but I know it's going to be hot on the Selling from the Heart podcast because we've got some phenomenal guests coming up.
Absolutely. New faces, new voices, new ideas, all to help you sell from the heart.
That's right. Until next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, unstick your deals, and most of all,
Sell from the heart.